Cool. One thing I wanted to just give you a heads up about, I know I've probably sent some emails about this, but I'm working on the Zoom version of the October meet. And I think Thursday afternoon, we're going to have, I forget his last name, but it's Eric, who has been working on, I think it's Eric, on the Roswell Mill. And he's been doing some really good work, and he's going to do a presentation. And then I was thinking about, talking to Brian Kammerer. He would really like to share his other great locomotive chase film with us. So I thought we could check that out Thursday as well. So I'm thinking we might have like a 3-hour on Thursday, maybe 2 hours on Saturday or Friday, and another 2 on Saturday, something like that. And as long as that's good, I mean, I figure we're going to be with a weekend together, so we could probably work a few hours each of those days, because it seems like there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff we can do. So I'm going to be finalizing that and get something out to you so you can plan accordingly. And then, I was talking to DC and some of you others, and I'm just looking at this list of topics that we've accumulated so far. And they include line side details, car loads, consists, prototype equipment for operations, stub switches, structures. We could do one just bridges. We could do rail facilities, mills, etc. That could probably be 2 or 3 meets there. Rolling stock, which we're going to kind of kick off tonight. And then I thought we need to give N scale some time. So let's have some N scalers do some presentations. I'm thinking of you, Joel. I got you, man.
Okay, I will. I will. Okay.
And then O scale. What's that?
I'll think of something. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
And scenery and trees and stuff. So if there's anything that you guys think might be a cool topic, just send me an email or a text or whatnot, and I'll start putting together some kind of schedule for the next couple of months. So with that, I thought this would be the lineup, and I thought, Walter, we'd let you go out of the gate first and show us what you're doing. And then we'll go with, I think we have DC, we have Rhett, and who was the other person? Oh, Jerry. Yeah, we got Jerry too. So I thought, well, let's do Walter, Jerry, Rhett, and then DC. So Walt, I think you got yours ready to go?
Yep.
Cool.
Let's see.
You enable sure I just said multiple screen sharing, so you should be able to pull that up.
Okay. I'm still going to do a little to doink. Okay, can people see it?
Yeah,
Oops.
Can you put it on slideshow? There you go.
Yeah, it's on slide. You should be seeing the one that has the full screen.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So what I wanted to model for starts is the Buffalo Bayou, Brazos, and Colorado Railroad. It was founded in 1853 and went to 1868, first operating railroad in Texas. A couple notes about it. Most of these kits you're going to see are BTS kits. I've been too scared to use Lincoln Pen, and from a lot of these were done a couple years ago. So I may change my mind. For the last presentation, it sounds like maybe I can go ahead and switch over. Decal, I like dry transfer. It doesn't have the same stick out stuff that decals, and I can make it myself. I will be asking about weight issues, and you'll see some of the stuff I do back when I did it. This is because I haven't got into 3D printing, though I have done some metal etching. I use staples for door handles, grab iron, stirrups, and so on, but you can look and comment. Brake wheels, I'll show you in a second. Anyway, so, okay, oops. So as far as weight goes, I took this from the NMRA suggestions, and I like this, and pretty much HO, I think we're going from 25, 30 feet to 40-foot cars. That's really mostly going to be it. And this is just, written out what they, for how long, the real length, model length, and then both ounces and grams, and I've used this as a guide. And one of my favorite things to use You can get sheet lead from Amazon, 1/32. But for an example of it, like that one piece, just 4.5 inches by, or 4 1/4 inches by 1.5 inches, that's 20 grams. And so here's one of the pieces I used it for. It's for a flat car. And see, one of the problems is you can sort of see there the deck is actually higher than the sides. It's not really made to be putting a bunch of lead in. Now I like the idea. It's actually a little bit heavier than what they say to use. You see the weights there. But that way, I'm pretty sure, even though it's a pretty small car, 3 5/8 inches long, but with that kind of weight, I'm hoping it won't be jumping tracks. And of course, in the middle there, that's for holding stakes. And this is kind of an illusion picture. This is the 3.5 inch car. But
Wow.
if you photograph it this way, it just looks weird. But I thought I'd get it from this angle. Now I'll have a better picture in a minute of the brake wheels. To me, in the 1800s, though they're just starting, they didn't have the same kind of bleak industrial look like later on. And so one kind of brake wheel, there'll be a better shot later. It's kind of a fancy, almost a flowery thing, as opposed to another style, which is on another car I have, that's more practical. But anyway, I'd want to get what people think of it. For paints, you can get this milk paint. You can buy it straight from them or get it at stores. And so this part of the thing with the paint controversy, I'm just going to assume whatever's handy. If it's a milk paint, if we're talking back then, I'm going to guess this is where I need some rivet counters to correct me. But for the paint, I'm assuming it's just like regular milk paint. And so the color variations will be the actual substances ground up and used for it. So that, to me, I'm going to call that as accurate as I can
Wow.
get. Now, on the rust on the left-hand wheel is too, okay, it looks like it's painted on. I got too much. But anyway, here's one of the cars.
Yeah, because it's wood.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not.
That's wood.
Wood?
Wood
Uh-oh.
beams.
Yeah, it's a wood beam that the journals are attached to.
Darn it. Okay. Well, see, that's why I got you guys here.
And the rust is going to look more like dust than a liquid on the journal
Oh,
and
okay.
on the journal carrier. The caps are the actual journals. The caps are on the actual journals, and the other part is the actual that the journal rides in up and down with the spring. That's the journal carrier.
Is the journal carrier going to be wood also?
No, that's metal.
Okay, okay.
But that's going to rust, but that's also going to show in with the rust. For the most part, it's going to show some original paint.
Okay.
And
Now,
it's going to be more of a dust effect.
Rhett, would
Yeah.
the original paint be a color, or would it be like a black or grimy black?
It, it depends on the railroad. Some railroads, they would paint these things like the car, whatever the car was painted, and others, they would have a standard thing, like you said, which would be like a grimy black. There's a lot of minor variations here.
Yeah, there's a little bit less rust because you got to remember what those journals were packed with was grease that leaked out.
Right. Actually, it was packed with tallow, animal
It
fat.
could have been packed with it was, but it was a nasty thing.
Yes,
And,
very nasty.
the ones that we found by Fairfax Station on the Orange and Alexandria were all actually fairly well preserved when they dug them up. Right by the station. They're in the Fairfax, and I assume those were probably U.S. Military Railroad. Those were done when they did a grade alignment on the old O&A line.
Hmm.
Now there you can see the brake wheel. That to me is a fancy kind, but even though it's a small railroad and so on, I like the idea of a fancy brake wheel.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
We have this group was started. Let's see, Brian and Tom and couple other people, we going back, I guess, what, 25 years now? But we all knew, we had a friend who was in this group, and his name was Jerry Dobb. And he straightened me out one day on something. He was talking about like something about brake wheels or whatever, or something that he liked. And he said, well, it's MFRR. That's my railroad. I said, oh, really? He said, yeah, it's like, the defeated and Gorin defeated and whatever that guy does. He says, mine is MFRR. And he said, well, what's that? It's my fucking railroad. So if you like those brake wheels, that's your railroad.
Mhm.
Okay.
So there you go. Jerry was a great guy.
So is this a different car? You just converted it to a gondola?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's actually a different gondola. See, this goes all the way to the end. They don't really have as big of steps on the end. And then also, because it's higher up, you can see those wheels, that's a different kind of trucks there.
Right.
Okay, to me, it is so high up, I wanted a double stirrup. The only thing I do is I just use staples for wires, and I put one staple inside the other. It's very awkward, but I
Right.
don't know, does somebody make decent stirrups now, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. You can get them right up there. For a key to a lot of these little accessories is the internet. And I'm trying to think of, God, I'm having a brain fart.
Now you said this is a BTS kit.
Yes, this is a BTS kit.
They usually send you a piece of wire that you can bend for those.
But
No?
how do you attach? See, for the grab irons, yes, but for the stirrups, if I have, unless I skip the 2 steps, it's always 1 step. Well, then I could have done that.
Yeah, but
But I couldn't think how to. I mean, I could have tried to solder it.
well, that would be the key. But what makes you think that was a 2-step on that car?
But just the distance was so far. When you
I'd be careful with that. I think I would want to find that prototype first,
okay.
because that's MFRR right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Say, Walter,
Yeah.
there's a couple of books that are good references for this period. William Voss, he was a superintendent of, I forget which railroad, but he wrote a book in, I think, 1878, and it's available free online. You can download it.
Says?
And if you, I'll see if I can find out where it is, and I'll send Tom a link for it so
Great.
that you can get it, because it's essentially a book of drawings, because he was an engineer. And what he did was record all the standard practices for building freight cars. And he reaches back into the Civil War period. Another book that's really good, if you can find it, and you want to look for the used books online, would be by John White, called The American Freight Car.
Oh, I got that.
You got that? Okay,
I got
that's
that.
a good one, but you have to go to the pioneer period at the very beginning.
Okay.
Okay, and that's because if you're in the Civil War era, the things were still pretty experimental back then. You got to realize too that the rolling stock they would have been using then would probably have been made in the 50s.
Yeah.
And that definitely was the pioneer period.
Another book you want to consider is Abdil's book on Civil War railroads.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How do you spell that?
Abdill.
He's got 3 or 4 books, I think, but
Yeah, he's got one on Civil War railroads and he's got two others. One's
Yeah.
on, yeah. Okay. What do you got next?
Okay, well, okay, there you can see the brake wheel again.
Yep.
Whatever that's, okay. The next boxcars. I could not find any pictures of the actual railroad modeling, but I was thinking of the way that Santa Fe has their picture of the area served. And so at the time of 1855 to 60, that was the Texas territory. But more to our modeling things, the door, I love having doors that can actually work. We actually see better there. Now, from what I've seen, it's always been flat metal, but I couldn't think of a way to do flat metal. I didn't want to paint it because I wanted to be able to move, because those doors are all movable. I did brass for what would hold over that top rail and just let it just hold the bottom rail in. So the door is pretty functional, but it's a little bit, to me, it seems a little bit heavy.
Yep. Yeah, you could do the same thing with precision scale is one source for brass wire, and you can get a variety of different thicknesses, and you can choose something that's a little bit lighter than that.
You
But
can,
I like your idea.
you can
Tichy
also
train
do
as well.
K
What's
and
that?
X.
Tichy train also has wire.
Right. Okay.
And
Clover House as well.
I'll get it in some point.
Yep.
K&S is actually the biggest
Mhm.
carrier of all that wire and all that stuff.
Right.
And you can see I got a door, and I noticed I seen a prototype picture. I put the handle going vertical down there, but it looked like some of them, they had the handles horizontal.
Yep.
That's true.
Some did.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's not very exciting. That's just the bottom. But you can see some of the attempts at the wire.
Truss rods. Yep.
Harris Lumber Company, that would be on their route, one of their main customers. This was, somebody just had this model partially done, so I finished it up. Yeah, now that's, well, okay, it's a bad photo. That has that other kind of brake wheel that's a more plain one.
Hmm.
There's going to be a very, and the smoke coming out of there kind of got crushed. I should have fluffed it up for the picture.
Yeah, get with it next time, will you?
Okay. Now, in my imagination, if it's anywhere near like India and so on back in the day, I assume they overload cars past what they're supposed to. And the little stakes you normally make are not going to hold that kind of heavy of a load. So I have oversized stakes on the side, even sort of going down a bit.
That's
And then I
wild.
put chain across the top so to help them from breaking off.
Right.
But anyway, I don't know if, usually I see just the super big logs, but this goes, if hopefully the structures I do, I got a barrel making factory. And for making staves, you don't need those super big logs.
Mm.
So this would be the size, this would be a more appropriate size to go to the barrel factory. And part of the thing was to have the Harris Lumber Company show off by having the chains on to show how fancy they were. So,
Nice.
and then, well, there you just another view of it. And oh, that's it.
Wow. Well,
Thanks for sharing.
what's cool is that you're doing a railroad that, nobody's done, Texas. That's great. It's it really spices up the variety of the lines that we typically see among ourselves. That's very cool.
Right.
And if anybody ever does find any pictures of their rolling stock or anything, great.
As far as I know, the only picture I have seen of the rolling stock is on the City of Houston seal here in Harris County, Texas. Where are you at, Walter? I'm in Harris County.
Well, right now I'm in Los Angeles. I was born in San Antonio. Grandparents, a lot of
Where I
reasons.
was born.
What?
I was born there too.
Lackland Air Force Base.
Yeah, me too.
Oh my gosh. And
Yeah.
most of my raising was in Dallas.
Air Force brat.
Yep.
Holy crap.
I'm going to get some logging railroad stuff that I'm going to pull. I'll at least send you a title because some of the stock may have ended up in that area. Okay, some of the East Texas logging roads. But I have seen hardly anything on the Buffalo Bayou yada yada railroad, except
Yeah.
on the City of Houston seal, where they
Uh,
have a loco and a car on the city seal.
One thing, if you've ever been to the Dallas train station, they got a list of the drum heads, like all the railroads that have been through Dallas. And I should look and see. I don't remember if they had the Buffalo Bayou, because then that went into the Galveston something, and then that went to SP, and then that went to UP. So right now UP has the Buffalo Bayou lines.
Yeah, you got some research in front of you there. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thank you, Walter. Appreciate that.
Excellent.
Walter, one quick aside for you. If you don't want to change your couplers, Katie makes a Lincoln Pen coupler. You just take the coupler out,
What?
and they have a little Earthsets Lincoln Pen you can put in. It's in there. It's in the Microtrains in scale line. Sorry.
Oh,
Okay. And it's like a little, it looks like when it's fastened, which is what I use, when it's fastened, it looks like a Lincoln Pen.
Now is it called Lincoln Pen?
It's called Lincoln Pen. It's in their Civil War era, because in N-scale, they also make U.S. military railroad trucks.
Yes.
Because they ran a line of cars, they still have a line of cars for Civil War era. But the N-scale will work with the HO. What it does is it snaps onto the center pin, the screw that holds the coupler in.
Uh-huh.
You take the coupler out, it just snaps and comes apart, goes together, but it looks like a Lincoln Pen when you're running. And it's very reliable. And quite frankly, Bernie's layout in O, I am glad to use Lincoln Pens. Anything smaller than that, I think I'd go crazy. Except, in a show model, I have some, but
Okay.
those never go. Thanks.
Got
All
it.
right. Thank you all.
Yep. You know what, DC? I think I'm gonna ask you to go next.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
because you sent your stuff in a while ago. So let's give you a shot
Oh.
here,
Let's see if I can get this started.
and then we'll do Jerry, and then we'll do Rhett.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a little bit different approach, so let's get started. One of the first cars I ever scratch built was a humble U.S. military railroad boxcar. And I really, when I was going through the images at the Library of Congress, one of the things I really, really liked was that they had the arched roof. And at that time, other than Concord Car Works, no one made a arched roof boxcar. So how did I approach it? Well, here's another picture. This is one that inspired me. If there's time, I'll get to the Dictator flat car I made. But again, I just loved the boxcar. Kind of like it was like the helicopter in Vietnam is the boxcar in the Civil War. It's just an all-purpose car.
Yeah, but which helicopter?
Uh-oh.
Okay.
I like
LeBron?
the Sikorsky helicopters because I was born and raised in Bridgeport.
Okay.
I used to watch them fly all the time. There you go.
I think everybody's familiar with the this. Don't remember what issue of Model Railroader was, but it was an earlier one, and they actually, there's the U.S. military boxcar, the open cattle car, standard flat car. You get the B&O iron boxcar, Georgia Railroad boxcar, Adams Express car. You'll notice that a lot of these now. Of course, it always happens after I got done scratch building my car and talking with Bill over at BTS. He's come out with kits for most of these cars. So I'm going to focus on the U.S. military boxcar. And one of the important things to me from this article is the dimensions it gave. It doesn't give every dimension, but you get the length, and you can get the wheel centers, and that's very important. From that, you can actually have printouts of them. I took a dividers and I can figure out the height of the stand for the brake staff, et cetera, et cetera. So this is what I actually did. I actually
Whoa.
had found
Whoa.
this on the back of one of the old sheets I had. Now, I'm not going to go through this whole thing. You only have
Good.
about 15 minutes. So I'm not going to go through this, okay? But
Send us a copy.
one of the things
look at
I
this.
find very useful is jigs.
Ah,
Some of them are
Yes.
made out of, this is part of an old real estate sign, that metal one. This is part of an old real estate sign, a plastic one. And they're great because I get the same curve. I just lay it up to whatever I'm sanding, you get the same curve. Some of the nuts and stuff they have on the actual drawings and on cards you see in the photos are different than things produced by Tichy Train or Grant Line. So our San Juan models now. So jig I made for make U.S.
Jesus.
military railroad ladders. I can actually make about 2 of them at a time. I lay a long strip down here on either side. Don't ask me what it is. I think it might be a 2x3, a normal 2x3. Then I can lay the cross pieces here, the rungs, and I usually make them out of styrene. And then when they're done, I can just carefully pop out and I cut it where I need it.
nice.
Lots and lots of jigs. This happens to be one, so I get the grab iron holes that I drill. I use wire grab irons. Some of mine are the Westerfield, some of them are Tichy Train. A lot of them I've made myself from just bending brass wire. So I get the right dimensions I needed. Jigs, I said I've been
Wow.
on my own. This on here on the left, the gray, is actually something I got from Grant Line. And it's in like an 18-inch and a 20-inch, and then I drilled another hole to make it 12-inch. I also needed some 8-inch and 24-inch grabs. I needed 22-inch, 23-inch. And then when I was making my passenger cars, I was actually bending my own end rails for them. One of the things that bugged me early on was not having the grab irons an equal distance from the car body. I can't remember where I saw it, but somebody said somebody had it down that it was a 3-inch away from the body. And so these are just something by 3-inch, just some styrene, and so they can consistently space the grab irons distance from the body.
Nice.
This is the first car that I scratch built. It's a U.S. military railroad box car. I do use Lincoln pin couplers. This happens to be one I'm going to change. I haven't changed it yet. This was one of Jerry Dobbs' couplers, as well as side frames he produced in brass. Everything else is scratch built out of styrene. Now for this particular car, I did not have the construction photos. I had all that information written down, but I was so involved in building it that I didn't think at the time of photographing what I had done. I have a piece of styrene cut so that anytime I do a car the same dimensions, I can make sure that the brake platform is the same distance from the end beam on every car. Okay, I made another, and I'm still in the process of redoing the basement, and everything from about 2 rooms has been consolidated into one room, so I can't get to a lot of stuff. But I have a go, no-go jig to make oval washers, which you saw in the drawings from Model Railroader. And then what I've done,
Oval washers?
oval washers, yeah.
Oh.
Okay. I call them the washers on the side. Those are actually one, something by one, I think 1x4 styrene. And on top of that, then I glue a 2x2 square, and I file them down to use another jig to file them down to the same height. And I drilled out this hole. And for the ends of the screw heads, I actually use the, what do you call them? The little feeders from the screws for nut, bolt, and washer castings. Not the castings themselves, the nut, bolts, but the screws. And you can drill little holes and you can stick them in and then file them down, and then it looks like you have a custom-made nut, bolt, and washer casting. Again, as soon as I got this all done, of course, Bill over at BTS came out with his car kits, and I have never made another U.S. military railroad box car from scratch since then. Some of the things I'm talking about, in this case, I did not use a jig or even a square, and so as you can see, they're not quite where they're supposed to be, but you can't tell that from the side. I did not, you just used, again, part from an old plastic real estate sign. I do not do a lot of detailing underneath the car bodies, simply because I can't see that when they're running, and I just can't see it, so I don't see any reason for me doing it. Yeah.
A quick question. I noticed that you have a simple screw for your link and pin coupler holder.
Yes.
Is that rigidly glued in there, or is that allowed to rotate?
That is rigid.
Okay.
Because because the way I use link and pin couplers, I actually make sure on each of the pockets for the links that
Right.
I've given enough room so the link can actually, there's some lateral play as well as vertical play. Okay, and I found that to be adequate. That's actually what we do over Tom's too. Well, actually, Tom, you use some you have sprung, don't you? On
Yep.
your, okay. But I found that I didn't really need it, so I just got them screwed onto the bottom.
You don't have too many, you don't have any problems with derailments or anything like that then?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not. And now I'm also using Reeboks wheels rather than these incredibly large flanged wheels.
I did some testing a few years ago, and in O scale with rigidly mounted link and pin couplers, I can use a 36-inch radius curve, no problem. Mostly because of the short size of the cars.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Some of the other things, this is an end piece. Again, these washers here, you see are actually oval, and there's a jig that I made, so it's, if they fit through, they're great. If not, they're not. Again, this thing got broken off and it has not been repaired. So this is a close-up of how I did the little nut bolt and washer castings on the side. Everything was cut to the drawings in the model railroader. I originally bent these stirrups from some strip stock. Nowadays, I actually use stirrups from Tichy Train. They might be a little more fragile, but they look a whole lot better. And I have not really had any problems except if I am too klutzy myself. In normal operation, they work just fine. Close up of the door. Some of these are earlier photographs. I apologize for them not being as clear as they could be. I also use Tichy Train now, 3-inch queen posts underneath my cars. I know that many times they did not actually have the turnbuckles, and sometimes cars did not actually have anything under there. But I do like the look of it. So it's MF railroad, right?
MFRR.
What about door latch? One thing I forgot to ask about is door latches.
I'm sorry.
Does anybody make door latches that would be appropriate for this era?
What I got here is actually from a, it's been bent up, so it doesn't look very clear. But look into the old Grant Line products. Look into San Juan models. Now that will give you a casting that is rigid, meaning it's not operable. If you want something operable, you'll have to try to design one yourself, as far as I know at this point. Okay. I did gain a lot of experience from this car, and as many people know, I'm actually freelancing a railroad called the Delaware Central. So what I've done is I've taken a lot of the techniques I learned, a lot of the jigs I made, and I applied them to converting other cars to for more appropriate period appearance. Above this car, number 26 started just like number 55 is a Rio Grande model. As you can see, it's shorter, it's lower in height, and what you don't see here, it's actually narrower in width. And kind of run through quickly how I did it. First of all, there's just some quick disassembly. And then what I did is I cut the ends off and then cut the sides off from the roof. And of course, bag up my old parts because you never know when you're going to use them for something else. I did use these old Denver and Rio Grande Western stock car doors. I plan on making a number of others of these cars, and I'll probably go back and using something similar to the doors that came with the original kit to make a ventilated box car. With the sides, I hate, you can notice here where the grab bars are, I hate cast on grab bars. I also hate shaving them off. I've got all the tools to do it, and then getting the correct, so it looks like I didn't shave something off. So I did several cuts, as you can see here, I dissected it, and this is, they're not glued together yet, but this is roughly how they'll look when they're glued back together. And this will give me a car that matches the dimensions in Model Railroader. Also I did use for this car, I did use the base that came with it, the undercarriage. I did have to cut it. If you'll see this kind of whitish area here, that's where I cut it too short. So I put a little slice of styrene in there. Once it's painted, you never know. I was concerned, doing this plate here kind of strengthens so you just don't have a butt joint glued together. Also, I went with scribed siding, which I found out that I really didn't need to do since I don't have operating doors. You were asking about the screws. So here's things kind of glued together. This strip seems like it's weird, but in the actual door, it's covered up by the one of the door frame members. I took the sides, I reversed them. What I do now is those screws that go through the hold the couplers on, they actually go into holes I drill here. So what I can do is I tighten up the truss rods, so it's just a barely slight curve in them, okay? And then when I screw them into the door frame, or I'm sorry, the car body, it just straightens out just enough, keeps those truss rods nice and taut. And if I need to add or take away weight, I just can undo a couple screws, remove the bottom, do what I never need to do, and then screw it back together. Just another view of the same thing. Again, this is where the screw will be screwed into. Another stage of the car where things are kind of glued together. used the jig to make sure that I had the correct radius for the roof. In terms of lowering it, to make sure this is just a 1x4 evergreen styrene, and anything above that was cut off to make the car sides the correct height. This is what the correct car looks like today. I am not responsible for that fabulous structure in the background. That was one of Al's structures that I was fortunate enough to get. But if you look at the ladder, the brake platform, they're all made with the jigs I made for the original boxcar. So the heights and everything is consistent. So there's a consistency in the rolling stock. There's a side view. Sometimes I use the side mount stirrups. A lot of times I'll use the bottom mount stirrups. I think any time in the future, I will actually use more like the original doors. Not that I make them sliding doors, but so that I like the look of them better, make more of a ventilated boxcar. Now, I only made one of these boxcars, so you wonder why this one's number 26, whereas this one's 36. Well, it so happened I was making a series of flat cars and I got over exuberant in numbering them. And it was easier to change this 2 into a 3 than to renumber that flat car. Again, this was before car, and this is after car. I did drop it, and so there's a little boo-boo there in the corner. Let's see. Okay, again, once I got all the basic techniques down, I actually applied the same things to other cars using similar techniques. This started as a LaBelle kit in Ohio River and Western. It's a 24-foot boxcar. I tend to like small equipment and use the same. I scratch build the doors, the brake platforms. The brake pole is actually a Tichy train casting. What you can't see here is the other half of the casting. Bending grab irons with the jigs. A little fancier door slide. I don't have photos of the construction process, but they're like 8 pieces of styrene in each of these
Jesus,
little pieces there.
you are insane.
Sometimes, but I don't do the bottom of the car,
Oh, good.
So sometimes it's if I can see it, I learned that from you, Tom.
Right.
If you can see it, it's worth modeling. If you can't see it, maybe. Okay. This is a side view. Again, it's a 24-foot boxcar, hardware to U.S. military railroad standards. So that even though it's a freelance car, it's reflecting the building practices of my case 1864. Tom, do I need to cut it?
Yeah, you just move through this as quickly as you can, that's all.
One of the reasons I built the box cars because I wanted to build the Dictator mortar flat car. First thing you do is gather all the slides, okay? You can to get all the nice views of the flat car and the mortar. Nice thing about Library of Congress images, the TIFF images can take a while to unload, but you can go in and you can zoom into things like the slide doesn't reflect it, but the details of some of the journals and how the trucks were made, how the car was put together. It's interesting, and some of the photographs, you'll actually see that these 2 metal plates here, one's at a skewed angle, and that was because they moved it from this flat car to a solid base because actually the firing the Dictator mortar, you'll also notice this log here with nothing behind it because there was such a recoil that it sent the car down the tracks and it was tearing the car apart. So you'll see here, this was actually done by my friend Chris, one of the founding members of our group, no longer with us. And he laid on this nice scale for me. You know, a couple of the details if you're
Jeez.
trying to do something from photos is that this was a 13-inch naval mortar. So, you know, the 13 inches. And the distance between the rails was 4'8" and 1/2 inches. So going on that and guesswork is where I got all the dimensions for this project. This is the platform. It's just a solid block of styrene, which I scribed individual boards up and down. You can tell where I ran a saw to give it wood grain. On top of that, they actually had metal plates on which the mortar sat. And they actually had 2 nut and bolt washer castings holding the plates in. But that time I just did one. It's my railroad. Here you see where they built to hold the built cannonballs, or sorry, cannonballs, mortar shells. These are my mortar shells beforehand. Okay.
Hope that's not your girlfriend's jewelry.
No. I got this myself. Actually, these are plastic. So anyways, give you an idea. I did these first. See how these are held together? That's the drill hole. And there I had drilled 2 holes the same distance apart, okay? Then I held them together with, in this case, the drill bit I used for drilling the hole. And this is from my fine used nail collection. And what that allowed me to do was to file all of these consistent. Okay, so there's the same contour in all of them. Then going back to the other slide, I would glue on a piece of styrene here. Then I would drill out the holes going from this side through the styrene, glue on this next piece of styrene, drill the holes going the other way. Okay, and then this is ready for the next step, which I put them back together. And then I file, so I get these little lips here, as you can see here. And then the next thing is that those journals were actually bolted onto a timber. And to make that timber, what I did was I glued on some, can't remember if it was 1.01 or 0.02 styrene here, and I sanded it even at the ends, and then glued a piece on each end. And this is what they end up looking like when they're assembled. Here we are ready to paint. These wheels are actually from the lead trucks of a general locomotive. That's what I used, and it's partly where I got my, so I got the spacing between them. Again, this is the mortar. This is on a diorama from Brian Cameron's great locomotive chase. I was honored enough to be able to caretaker 3 of his dioramas for a couple of years, and he actually drew these figures for me, and I cut them out, put them there. There's the model with, once I got some plastic surgery on the figures. There's the first car is actually one of Bill's kits, and the second car is my scratch build kit. Close up, and just some of the parts. These are Grant Line, now Tichy train linking pin couplers. These are their gill pin tram couplers. I cut out the center and put in I can give people the detail if they want to. A piece of styrene, drill a hole through it, and I can mount the couplers on the body. I do use their links. I don't use their pins. As for pins, I use model shapeways, shipways, I'm sorry.
Right.
These are the 3/16 inch or 5mm pack. They're really pretty cheap to get 150. And you think about how many you might lose. They also make other sizes like the 1/4 inch, which would be more appropriate for the maybe other Tom couplers. Alexander Iron Horse Miniatures, yeah. couplers. In terms of, Bill does over at BTS now, but I use the pawls and the bottom parts, discard the middle parts for my brake wheels. I do not use Tichy Train brake wheels. Use ones from BTS, they're much finer. This is another thing I use a lot when I'm doing my grab irons. Got bolt washer castings, two types of stirrups. These are the side mount stirrups. Old price, and you can tell I've had them for a while. And these are the stirrups to mount underneath the car. And that was it. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Any questions?
Beautiful.
Hey, DC.
Yeah.
Wow.
While you were going about BTS, I just want to remind you that Tom and I were present when you talked Bill into making those kits.
I know.
What was this?
It was great because the BTS boxcar I showed you was actually the prototype that Bill sent me to put together to give him feedback on. And he's implemented a little bit because I can never leave well enough alone. My motto is mess with it till you screwed it up. Then you know you've done enough.
I just had one historical question. I've always thought the Dictator is purely Union. Did the Confederacy ever steal one? I assume they never made one, but did they ever steal it, use it, or anything, or would it always purely be in a Union setting?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
It was specifically used in the siege of Petersburg. It was militarily used on a long curve, so you could get the angles adjusted. And it was actually really just something they did for that one protracted siege.
It was actually the mortar was actually used on naval ships. It was a Navy mortar.
Yep, nothing in the South. Well, LeBron, did they have any of those?
They had a smaller version of the mortars that they used on the coastal fortifications.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind, it's your railroad.
Right. Always go back to that. That's great. DC, thanks, man. That was great. Beautiful
Yeah.
work as usual.
Beautiful.
Mr. Dow. I'm Mr. Dow. Jesus. Mr. Dykstra. Jerry and Jerry.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to see if I can pull it up here.
Oh, I've got, okay, you got it?
You've got it. Okay. Okay, this is a little bit of change of pace. For some goofy reason, I decided I needed to tinker with modeling a coal jimmy.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason they're called coal jimmies is they were initially designed by James Milholland. I think it was the Pennsylvania and Reading Railroad.
That's right.
And the design was so practical that pretty much every railroad that wasn't the Pennsylvania Railroad kind of copied it and used it.
Well,
the dimensions here are in English, and there's another drawing later on that was done by a Frenchman, and it's metric, but I've compared the two and they match up. But what you see here is the side view of the coal jimmy with a lever that's extending diagonally up toward the right.
did I do that? I guess I did, didn't I? How the frick did I do that?
I don't know.
There we go.
Okay, there's a lever that extends up toward the right, and it's retained by a ratchet up in the upper right corner, and it goes down toward the center of the bottom of the car where they had some kind of a cam mechanism that would clamp the shoes against the wheels from the inside. The draft gear on this car consisted of a hook on each end and then 3 links of a very heavy chain. And the reason they used 3 links was because the outer 2 links are in the same orientation, so it would work like a link and pin coupler, except the hook was open. And in order for the thing not to jump off an open hook, you had the link in the center that would weight it down a bit. And the bumpers were spaced just so that you could get the links on and the center link would hang a little bit. So there's a little bit of play when they pulled these things. They strung these together in trains of 100 to 150 cars. And these cars were about a 5-ton capacity each. So go ahead and hit the next one, Tom. The suspension was ashwood planks, which were ashwood is kind of flexible and it was kind of springy. And the axle journals were just simply bolted to those planks. And the wheels were plate wheels. They were plate castings that had ribbed backs. So go ahead, Tom. Okay, this is the drawing that's in John White's book. That was drawn by a Frenchman, but I was able to pull that thing into AutoCAD and generate a lot of the additional dimensions I needed. The brake wheels that you see in this drawing, that's garbage. These cars didn't have brake wheels. They had the lever on the side because of the way they were used. The Reading Railroad used them predominantly to feed a coal dock in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is a really wild affair that there's some slides later on if we got time. Some of the later cars used by other railroads may have had brake wheels, and perhaps the Pennsylvania Railroad had brake wheels, but when they were used at a coal dock, they had that lever on the side. Okay, go ahead. I did a digital model of this car with the intention of 3D printing it. And if you look down on the left-hand side, that lighter piece of wood, that lighter beam across there is the piece of ash that was retained between two iron castings, one at each end. And then you can see the bolt heads for the journal bearings that were bolted on from underneath. It had a ratchet affair on one side, and it had a shaft across. Just under that cross beam in the center was a shaft that wound up a chain that held the doors shut on the bottom of the car. I'll go ahead to the next slide. This shows you the frame of the car. And again, you can see the ash beams, the spring beams, and then the other timbers of the frame. The sill timbers and the center pair of sill timbers were heavier, and the end timbers were also quite heavy because the force from pulling the car for the draft gear was transferred through those two sill timbers running from front to back. They couldn't get an iron rod through the center because they had to have the doors be able to operate. Okay, go ahead. And there's the whole car, and you can see the doors on the bottom. And again, you can see how the ash timber is mounted between the two castings. And there were tie rods all over this thing that held it together, iron tie rods. So there was a lot of iron hardware on these cars. Go ahead to the next slide. Then I 3D printed it, and as you can see, it's a tiny little rascal.
Yeah.
And I printed the wheels as well. And what I used was a piece of 1/32 diameter music wire to make the axles, and they fit between the journals with the wheels in the center. And actually went together pretty easily, and it rolled nice and free. It's very lightweight, so you have to put some weight in it. Probably 1.5 ounces, I would say. And if you're going to put a coal load in one, I'd just throw some lead or tungsten or whatever you can come up with in under the coal, and then put coal on top.
Right.
And it'd be about right. Next slide. There again, you can see it's not a very big car. It's only about 10 foot long. In HO scale, it's just a little bit over an inch long. Okay, go ahead. There you can see the three link affair. And what I did for a hook, I bought some hooks at Hobby Lobby, and I had a little tapping plate or threading plate for very small metric screws. And I was able to run a little metric tap down through the center to tap out the plastic. And I ran the die up on the hook, and lo and behold, it screwed in just like a screw. And I was surprised. And I just hit it with some cyanoacrylate cement after that, and it was pretty secure. The chain also came from the jewelry department at Hobby Lobby. And I just dug around until I got a chain that looked about right and said, there, 3 links don't quite hit the ground, which is about the way it was on the real thing.
Cool.
And the plastic body of the thing is got a lot of debris on it yet from the printing, but it didn't take too much to clean it up. But go ahead. That's the finished animal.
Yeah.
And those wheels are painted with a some metallizing paint. Trying to remember who makes it.
American
It
model caster.
oh, it's a real common manufacturer, but you paint it on, and then if you want it shiny, you buff it.
It's like tester stuff.
It's Model Master.
Yeah, there you go, Model Master.
Yeah, that's what I just said.
Yeah. And so anyway, they're gray plastic, and then they've got metallizing steel painted on them, and then buffed a little bit.
Nice.
And it turned out it's surprisingly well.
Do you hand buff them?
Did I
Probably buff
hand buff the wheels? Yeah, I just took a piece of tissue paper and polished them by hand.
Okay.
And I didn't get real fussy because I figured they weren't going to be, they were splotchy and so on. And the real thing was probably that way too. It'd have chips and rust and so on the iron. And you didn't want to get it too shiny because iron wasn't shiny. And you got to realize they didn't have steel back then. Everything was iron. So.
Cool. Nice work, man.
So that's the real Cold Jimmy. The other Cold Jimmy that's out there on Shapeways is, I believe, the 8-tonner that came later. Because there was an 8-tonner that was done in the 70s and 80s. And it looks a lot like this one, but it has cast iron journals rather than the spring plank. And I think Eric Cox did it, and he also did one like this that has the spring plank. Yes. I know Eric Cox works a lot out of John White's book. And so if you find stuff on Shapeways that's done by Eric Cox, it's going to be pretty dead on.
There's no numbering or reporting marks or anything on these?
Pardon me?
Would these cars be numbered or, the rail name or anything like that on it?
They probably would. I don't know much about that, but what I do know is that if they were numbered or had rail names, after they hauled a few loads of coal, they'd be predominantly pretty much black. So, and they were pretty generic, and I suspect they interchanged a lot from railroad to railroad because they were like beer cans. There were a lot. There were tens of thousands of them out there. I read the article about the coal dock in Hoboken that in 1855, I think, or not 1855, in early 1860s, they were running like 100 trains a day into that dock.
Wow.
Of over 100 cars each.
Wow.
So that's a lot of rolling stock moving around in just one place. Go ahead to the next slide, Tom. Okay, down on the lower left, you can see the dock complex at Hoboken. And they started building these in the late 1850s, and they were going strong during the Civil War. And yeah, up on the text on the top, they unloaded over 2,000 jimmies a day in 1860. So the picture on the right-hand side shows the approach to the docks. And if you think maybe that slope is exaggerated, it's not. It was like a roller coaster. So go to the next slide, Tom. There you can see the slope up the hill, and those little posts that are sticking up in between the tracks are actually retainers to keep the cars from rolling back down the hill as they're being pulled up the hill.
Oh, like a ratchet almost.
Yeah. Next slide. Okay, here they're hooking on, and this is why they had open hooks rather than link and pin, because they were both in the mines and where they finally unloaded, they had to be able to couple and decouple quickly, because what this guy is doing, he's taking a chain. You see the chute in the foreground, that comes from the top of the ramp, kind of like a bowling alley. When they're done using the link chain, they put it in the chute and slide it down to the bottom.
Wow.
That guy would grab it and he would hook that car on, probably on the fly.
Wow.
And what you see happening there, there's a cable that's running up the center, and that cable is driven by a steam engine at the top, and it returns down underneath the tracks and comes up again from the bottom, at the bottom of the hill. You can see that pulley there is kind of where the return line is. So they hook these cars on, and then the brakeman rides the car up the hill. And you see the lever on the side with the ratchet on the front car. You can see
right
the ratchet. Okay. So once the dock guy gets it hooked up, the brakeman rides that car up the hill. So go to the next slide.
Wow.
There he goes.
What a
Not
cool
OSHA
job.
approved.
And yeah, I don't know what their mortality rate was, but that doesn't look like a real safe job. But anyway, he's riding that car up, and if for any reason the chain or the cable breaks, those gravity operated timbers are meant to catch the car before it gets all the way to the bottom.
Or the operator.
So as they ride over them, they swing down out of the way, but then they pop up behind the car again.
Wow.
So next slide.
Yeah, there we go.
That's where they're dumping them to transfer the coal into ships. And what you see in front of the guy sitting on the car there, it looks like a little ramp sloping down very gradually. He's on the up. I believe he's on the uphill run, and then the downhill run runs in front of him. So next slide.
Oh my gosh.
This is where they get to the end of coming up the hill.
Oh,
they roll up against that little stop, and then they get switched over to the downhill run, because once they've dumped their loads in the bunkers, they come to this little ski ramp at the end, which gives them enough kick back that they can make that switch. Now the brakeman has to ride that car down the hill because he's got to ride the brakes.
Oh man.
Next slide. There you can see the train coming. You can see the return line coming back down the hill.
Oh my God.
So that's what a coal jimmy is all about. It's
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
and when you think about 2,000 cars a day in the early 1860s, that's a tremendous amount of coal that was moving up and down the East Coast. And pretty much every railroad out there was running some of these jimmies because everybody used coal. Most of the industry used coal. Even if your locomotives were wood fired, they used coal everywhere, and north and south both. So I've got to think, if you've got a Civil War railroad, you probably need to have some jimmies if you're not the Pennsylvania Railroad. If you're the Pennsylvania Railroad, you're going to have pot hoppers.
Right. Right. I guess they'll need a few jimmies. Oh boy. Okay.
So,
Jerry?
There you go. Food for thought.
Wow.
Charlie's got a question, Jerry.
Jerry, that's great.
Jerry,
Great.
while you're talking about coal jimmies, I pulled one of these things off my railroad here.
Hey, there you go.
everybody needs a coal jimmy. And this thing here is a plastic ready-to-run thing in O scale made by a company called Kalon. And those things are available out there if anybody's doing O scale. They run very, very well. They're weighted just fine. And they're just almost the same thing that Jerry was talking about.
Charlie, do you have a question?
Yeah, is my audio working?
Yep.
Oh, it is? Oh, that's- okay. I know that on the Nashville and Chattanooga, and I think on the Memphis and Charleston, most of the coal that they were using was, say, firing the boilers at the shops, and they used low gondolas for that on those two lines. And
Okay.
Mark
Brainerd?
Yeah, Brainerd. He found a fabulous article, and it was a superintendent on the NNC. It sent a telegram to the agent in Chattanooga about how the car should be struck flat. You know, it had 15-inch height. You know, that generated the proper coal load. So at least some lines were using low gondolas.
Yeah, the thing to be aware of when they used gondolas, that all had to be hand shoveled when they unloaded.
Right.
It was very labor intensive.
Right. That's why we had slaves, I guess.
Yeah.
John Bob?
Jerry mentioned Jimmy's from Shapeways by Eric Cox.
Yeah, there you go.
There's one. This is similar to the one that Jerry did with the plank for a spring. He's got brake shoes at one end. So I don't know specifically what drawing he used for it, but it's pretty nice. Got a lot of detail. There's the, I don't know if you can see that, but the rod going from side to side below the cross brace for the wind-up ratchet for the doors is even printed.
Yeah.
And this is the other style that Eric does.
Yeah, with the iron.
This one's got a different suspension, so to speak. It's got cast iron pedestals with there'd be a spring above each journal box, and of course it's showing brake shoes for both wheels.
Wow.
So this is the deluxe version, I guess, probably a later version.
So
Yeah,
Jerry was talking about from later time.
Yeah, that later version was an 8-ton capacity car.
Yeah.
And it was
This is one of Eric's.
I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, this is you know, these two are essentially the same size. Now there's another Jimmy that Bernard did for Allchem. It's a laser cut. That's about similar to this, although I haven't built it. But the other thing that there is a Jimmy that Red Ball did, you know, in the 50s and may still be available. And that's a New York Central prototype, and it's like a 10-ton. It's a monster compared to this.
Yeah.
But that was strictly New York Central, I think.
Easy, yeah. Put up the pot hopper. Do you have a coal Jimmy or one of the pot hoppers you did?
This is one of the coal Jimmies, and it's pretty much right on from John White's book. And
Now, is that a scratch built?
no, this is actually one of Eric's models that John was just showing us. Of course, they did have road names out there and numbers. I've seen them. As Tom would say, this is a little bit too pristine. But usually I get to the point, eventually I'll probably start weathering my stuff. But for now, I'm still a little, it's like the firstborn. You're kind of gentle with them.
Oh, right.
Eventually you'll go, just go out and play.
Really? Yeah, bring them over here. We'll help them play.
Now, how do you unload the ships? Now you're way down at sea level.
Yeah.
Shovel it out.
Oh, they had coaling cranes. Swing over, drop a bucket, fill the bucket, bring it back up, throw it over to the coal dock. Almost every port on the East Coast had big, extensive coal facilities.
Did they use them on the West Coast as well?
Oh, yeah, they
For
did.
unloading?
They did. I remember seeing pictures of the Los Angeles docks around the turn of the century. Both of them had big coal facilities.
There's a really good shot of the Alexandria coal docks in the Library of Congress collection, which has the big high cranes that were used to offload. And there's a coaling ship tied up at the dock, which probably came down from the Delaware and Lackawanna or one of the others, because they didn't rail in coal, and the coal was used there for the gasification plant.
Question for you all. You guys okay staying on? Because I was going to let Rhett do his, and that would be the last one of the evening. You guys good?
Tom.
Yeah.
Tom, I'm going to have to bow out. I've got nature's calling on me.
Okay.
All
Well,
right.
then we'll kick off the next one with yours.
All right. Yeah, because unfortunately, I got to go talk about a horse.
Right. Okay. Good, good.
ACWRR.
Any questions, any comments from anybody?
Yeah, I got
guys,
something else.
Great.
Bye, Rhett.
Bye, Rhett.
Bye, guys.
John?
So
Yeah, John.
at DC early on in his presentation mentioned boxcars from Concorde scale models. I don't know if everybody's familiar with those, but here's one. This is
Oh, wow.
Chicago and New York Green Line. This is something this is the way I got it. I mean, the roof isn't even painted. It's got a real antique kind of coupler there. They might have been around earlier than Lincoln Pin. This car.
Is this one of those?
Oh,
This-
look.
Yeah.
I was wondering what the hell this thing was.
This car.
I have two of them.
This car is done from drawings in the 1879 Car Builder's Dictionary.
Wow.
Of a Central of New Jersey boxcar, and it's a very accurate model.
Yep.
It's a little light on detail, but dimensionally it's right there, and it's really a pretty neat kit. You talk about putting in a scribed floor that you can't see. This kit has individual boards for the floor.
Wow.
Now, some of the kits were wood and some of them had more like the paper side, because I've had both of them.
Yeah.
And they also come with two different types of brake wheels. One that's, if I have one where it's on the end, and then an upright one too. Did your kit come with those?
The ones that I have all got wood sides. There was another version of it with sort of brown sides with just a plain Jersey Central lettering. I'm kind of suspicious of this lettering. I've never seen, it might be made up. It's labeled Green Line. Well, that would be a fast freight line, and that didn't come along. Those didn't come along until interchange in the 1870s. Now, here's another Concorde car, and this is one of Al's cars that I'm fortunate enough to have.
Wow.
It's clearly the same thing, but it's got Al's touch to it. It's got wood beam trucks that are more appropriate, and it's got the brake wheel on the end. And the Pennsylvania Railroad called this a tunnel brake when the wheel was like that. And there is no detail on the bottom because there's only brakes on one truck. So there's no rodding or anything going in between. There's no truss rods. So there's just nothing on the bottom.
John, did you say that was an 1879 model?
The 1879 Car Builder's Dictionary has the drawing. Now that doesn't mean the drawing that the car was new for 1879.
Okay, great.
It was kind of archaic even for them.
Easily.
With a radial roof, and on Al's he didn't put a roof rock on it, and I don't I don't
Some
know.
had them and some did not.
Yeah, but he did some, there's some, you can't probably see it, but there's some detail on the roof. There's some representing some type of roofing that's put on in strips and seamed. So that's a nice detail as well.
That's how.
But it's
One of the
clearly the
interesting
same.
things about Concord Car Works cars is that they actually had different numbers on them. I think there's like 4 different for the green line. I think there were like 4 different numbers.
Oh. I'll have to compare this one to the other one. They also made a gondola.
I've got one of those kits. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't. Have you built yours?
No,
Yeah, me neither.
it's in the to-do. I've got a big to-do list.
Oh, please.
I understand about that.
Now, I was under the impression that side-mounted brake wheels weren't till after the 1860s. Did they have them in the Civil War?
Yes.
No.
The best one to see is on the telegraph car. I think it's Stoneman Station, Library of Congress collection. I'll stick that up on the group's website.
Yeah.
But it has
Georgia Railroad used them too. Georgia Railroad also had them.
And mounted. Yeah. Cool. Good. Good stuff. I love this. Walter, thanks so much for your presentation. You other guys as well. I'm sure you picked up some stuff. I think somebody said they're going to send me a link to something that I'll forward you. Do you remember who that was?
That's me.
Got it.
I'll get the link for the William Voss book, and actually I've got it, but I don't think I can email the book because it's a big PDF file, and I think I just downloaded it off the site. So I'll look it up.
Is it from the 1877 train car?
It's in that area, but it's car building practices, and he was an engineer.
It's
And
actually
what he did is
1892.
he put together, yeah, John's got it there.
I sent a
John,
message
show us
out
again.
earlier
Yeah.
with the link. It's, if you check your messages at the bottom of your chat, you'll see the link for the book. So you can download it from the
Oh, okay,
Google
there you
link
go.
there. So
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You see that in the chat, Walt?
Yeah.
That's a good reference, Walt, because it's even though it was written later than the Civil War, he refers to older practices. So whenever you go in and find older practices of how they built trucks, how they built roofs, how they did things, there's a lot of good information in there. And you combine that with what's in John White's book, and you can pretty much reproduce a lot of the Civil War stuff.
Well, I got a lot of work to do. You know, that's the one beauty and the curse with you guys. It's like you're always finding something that I haven't done, or I've done the wrong way, or I have, you know.
Now I got to smash it and start over.
Jesus.
keeps things interesting.
It is, man. It really is. It really is. So, anybody else? Final comment? All right.
Thanks
Well,
again,
gentlemen.
Tom.
What's that, Joel?
Thanks again.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. It's always great to see you guys.
thanks,
This is
Tom.
fun, Ron. Yep.
What
We'll
a
see
great
you.
night. Great night. Thanks, guys.
Take care,
Thank you
guys.
all.
Be well.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Take it easy.
Night.
Thanks.
DC.
Yes, sir.
That was fun.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I figured, you know, that was
Rhett's
the
still
last.
alive.
What's that?
Rhett's still alive.
Yep. Yeah, the only reason that I switched it up is because I was trying to get you guys in order with who showed up first in my request. And Walter
Oh.
came first, And then you came second actually, and then Jerry, and then Rhett. But I thought Rhett's got some good stuff, and I don't want to rush him, so I figured let's just hold that for the next time.
Okay. Did you time mine? How long was it? Was it too long?
No, it wasn't. No, I would have. No, it like by the time you got to the dictator, you were about 15 minutes into it or so.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, it's tough, you know. But I thought you kept it at a good pace. You know, when people said something, you paused for half a second. You know, as soon as they stopped talking, you jumped right in. You kept it moving. So I thought that was great, and you didn't go over and over stuff. It was, yeah, you kept a nice pace. That's why I said, yeah, you just do the dictator because I know you'd move through that.
Okay, it was fun. It was interesting. I'm glad Walter got a chance to participate too. You know.
Yep. Yep.
Because yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, my guess.
I really enjoyed Jerry's.
Yeah.
With the diagrams, I mean, just focused on one car. I was debating on what ways to go. So.
Well, what you saw there with the coal jimmies, that was one of the elements of his presentation that you missed when we were at one of the last meets. I think it was at Memphis.
Oh, okay.
Because he did cotton, he did iron, and he did coal.
Okay.
Right. And
yeah,
so
what he's describing, mostly the coal jimmies would be used on either the east or the west coast. And at this time, coal was more produced on the East Coast. So I don't know too much about the West Coast, but other than coal was used heavily for powering ocean-going steam vessels.
Right. Yeah, I was chatting with LeBron, asking him if he knew about the WNA, and he wasn't sure. So I'm going to have to go to Dave Bright's site and see if they mention jimmies or just coal cars.
Yeah, I'm thinking Gons are probably more likely.
I agree.
Or like, I don't know to what extent coal was used at that time in the South.
Well, they used it a lot at the mills. In the mills, like Schofield Mill, they used coal.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But still, it's like when I'm doing my layout, I'm thinking, well, how am I going to unload these cars? You know? And
you can't really.
So a lot of them might just be run-throughs, trains, you know?
Well, I mean, with our model railroad group, we have inserts. So when the car gets to its destination, you just take it out.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking of doing that, but I mean, in terms of having facilities to unload it or load it. Like,
oh, right.
The track plan I have, the mine is, you actually don't see the mine in this section. It's just one of the tracks on the hidden spur. So I could bring a coal train out, and I could, the factory, the Crow Car and Foundry, they'd probably use coal. I have them as a destination, and also they'd probably have coal on the river, but I don't think Wilmington, Delaware had anything like the docks on the Delaware River up by Pennsylvania, up by Philadelphia.
Right, right. But they would have brought coal in for their industries.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm not sure if they'd use the pot hoppers or something else. So well, I don't know.
That's what's so great about you doing a freelance. You can do whatever you want.
MYF Railroad.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Cool. So what should we do next time?
Well, what I hope some of the guys get back to you with suggestions.
Well, I got a ton.
We're going to start with LeBron. I'm not LeBron, with Rhett.
I was thinking it might make sense to do carloads.
That could be. That could be. I'd like it, like the shipment of cotton would be good. You've gotten pretty good on coal, though I'm sure there are coals otherwise.
Well,
mean,
I'm
you look-
thinking more about how guys would actually model that. How would you do
Okay.
coal loads?
Okay,
How would you do cotton loads? How would you do artillery loads? Troop loads?
that would follow from the artillery loads would follow from Brett's presentation.
And he could easily go into that because he's got that.
Yeah. You could do cotton loads.
Yep.
Or LeBron. I don't know.
Yep. And yep. Yeah, I think I might do that. We'll do car loads next time. See what people come up with.
That's cool.
Cool. Cool. All right, my friend.
You have a good night. I'm going to go listen to
The convention.
the convention. Yep.
I was at a Trump rally today. Did you hear me?
Yeah, I did. I don't know what to say. They
I
were
didn't know.
supposedly the bunch of Trump demonstrators
No,
are going
I
to
didn't know
go
it
down
was
in
that.
Wilmington tonight.
There's a place called, you might have gone there, North Beach Grill, with us. But the lady that owns it's a sweetheart, and she got an offer to have a film crew come in if she'd be willing to, hold a breakfast. So she invited so many people, and it was a free breakfast. You just had to show up at 5 a.m. and be willing to stay till 7. And you had the option of being interviewed. So it turns out there's this guy named Pete or Phil from Fox Morning Show, Fox and Friends, with a film crew. And when I was at dark, so I didn't see anything. But as the light came up and I saw this guy, I thought, and then somebody says, they're passing around this placard and to sign it for this guy. And this woman comes over to me and goes, "Did you sign this?" I said, "No, I didn't." She goes, "Oh, do you want to sign it?" I said, "I don't think so." And she looked at me. I said, "I don't even know who this guy is." She said, "Oh, okay." And there's Trump hats, and there's We the People shirts, and Trump support shirts, and I'm like, holy shit. And I missed my shot at getting interviewed because that would have been a perfect spot to do my little thing.
They would have deleted you.
Might
Or
have.
the Trump supporters might have.
I'd have been cool. I'd have just made some factual comments and let it be at that. But
Wow.
That was interesting, man.
I'm not going to tell Donna. I don't think I'm going to tell Donna. She likes you.
Good. Some things are best left unsaid.
I agree.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
All right, baby. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, take care. Bye.